talk about what it took to get there, but that is a big deal. And so the work that she continues to do elevates other people and other people to be leaders like myself. She put me on. I'm in a different way, right? So now the industry is at 3%. It's not much, but it's still growth. And when we talk about policy work, it takes a long time. The things that you do in policy might not even happen in your lifetime. Some things happen fast, like the 280E tax bill happened a lot faster than we thought, but just like it took them 50 years to overturn Roe versus Wade. So policy, it takes work, and I've said that twice now. All right, so Dr. Chanda Macias has a PhD and an MBA, is the chairwoman of the Board of Managers and CEO for Women Grow. Women Grow was established in 2014 as the largest network of women in cannabis and hemp industry globally. Established on principles of inclusivity and leadership, Women Grow provides a platform for women to connect, learn, and succeed, fostering an environment where they can lead the future of cannabis. Through events such as the Women Grow Leadership Summit, the organization brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and advocates championing a diverse and equitable cannabis community. Dr. Macias, MBA, is the CEO of National Holistic Healthcare, the medical cannabis cultivator, processor, and dispenser in the United States with expansion globally. Dr. Macias has spent 15 plus years developing her knowledge of medical cannabis to have a positive impact on patient lives. Dr. Macias started her career in the flagship medical dispensary in Washington, D.C., National Holistic Healing Center in DuPont Circle. And if you need medicine, you can self-certify and be able to purchase within 3 minutes in D.C. So check her out on Connecticut Ave. Dr. Macias is the vice chair of Project Champion, a grassroots organization committed to raising awareness about the healthcare benefits of cannabis for former athletes. Project Champion brings together athletes from various sports backgrounds to advocate for cannabis as a viable health care. The organization supports our champions, former athletes in need, and drives legislative change to support cannabis-related health policies. Dr. Chanda Macias serves as the vice chair of the board of the National Cannabis Roundtable, NCR, a leading trade association dedicated to advancing common sense federal cannabis legislation, tax equity, and financial services reform. NCR focuses on promoting a thriving and regulated cannabis industry while ensuring consumer protection, fostering social equity, and supporting fair opportunities for all involved. Dr. Macias earned a PhD in cellular biology, I know I'm gonna hear it, from Howard University. There's no HU, I was getting ready to say, I know I'm gonna hear it. And from Rutgers University in supply chain management. As a research scientist, Dr. Macias investigated oral diseases and possible treatment options at Colgate-Palmolive Company, a Fortune 500 company. She contributed to the launch of several billion-dollar brands. Her innovations have resulted in numerous scientific achievements, including publications, compilations, U.S. and global patents, World Intellectual Property Organization. Without further ado, let's give a round of applause for Dr. Chanda Macias. Want some water? I'm fine. Okay. You know you want.
Wow, when you hear that, you're like, I still am like, I'm tired. I mean, after 12 years plus in the cannabis industry, but prior to that, managing multi-million-dollar grants from NIH, loving HU, giving back to my community, I think like the second half of my life is definitely going to be dedicated to more enjoyment and more of moving our community forward. Um, and just to recap, you know, Kia, you're very special, but also we come from a same place where we're ingrained in the Black community. And a lot of people might not understand exactly my passion and my purpose. When I went to Howard University and I decided to study cancer, the first thing I thought about are all the Black women that were impacted with breast cancer. So I love the pink. I studied breast cancer because it impacted my friends, my community, my loved ones. And then I looked around and I'm like, look at all these men that have prostate cancer. So my dissertation work focused on prostate cancer to bone. And it really focused on what we needed in our community. And then I did a lot of research about the medical benefits of cannabis, whether how it impacts cancer or other infectious diseases. But at that time, it wasn't allowed for me to study that. It was illegal, and actually today it still is in the United States. And it was disheartening because I found my purpose and my passion that I wasn't able to pursue until about 20 years after that time. And I think there's some things that we here at the Minority Policy Summit should really think about in perspective our past as a community, and then think about where we are today and what we need to do to move forward in the future. So I want to focus on the enslaved population. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is that if you don't know where we've been and the incremental changes that have been occurring over the last 400 years, how do you know where we should go? And so with that, I want you to understand that the enslaved people drove the economy of the United States. And with that, we were a form of labor that we weren't compensated for, that we drove the economic benefits and the infrastructure of the United States. And not only that, we were property. The government taxed all of the owners with a tax that the government benefited from, property taxes, which we were. And so if you think about how we had to evolve from a place of enslavement where economically it benefited businesses and the government, we think that we fought very, very hard just to hit the post-Civil War and then being able to be emancipated and level up to sharecroppers. Now, if you think about this, like, you go from generations of enslavement, and the only incremental change that you can actually observe in your lifetime is then sharecropping. Now, I'm gonna speak what comes to my heart as we go through this voyage or this journey in the past, because when I think about what our ancestors did for us to get us where we are today, and what they had to endure, and what we're not doing today for our future generations, it breaks my heart. So let me continue down this voyage of sharecropping. Even when the enslaved were free, a lot of them did not know. They actually continued to work on the lands where they were enslaved for little to nothing. And when I say little to nothing, I mean just for a place to live and something to eat. I have my roots in New Orleans, so there was something called Code Noir, or black codes. What that meant is that each person that had an enslaved individual had to give them 10% of protein according to the law. So they gave them the pig, and they gave them red beans. And man, we made something beautiful out of that. And I will say that even though we're a people of trauma and pain, we do find our glory. And with that, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the segregation. We weren't able to have land ownership. We were denied quality education, business opportunities, and still we found a way to flourish within our own communities. So now let's fast forward that a little bit more into the 20th century. Again, generations of stepping on our ancestors for incremental change in policy. We have endured redlining and housing discriminations, where we know that generational wealth came from real estate. And not only that we had a lot of opportunities where we saw our white counterparts had government-backed housing options for their community to purchase where we didn't have them for us in our own community. But this is the part where, as a Black woman, that I saw very young in Prince George's County, the mass incarceration of the African American male. And that incarceration really spoke in a very different way. Now, as a scientist, born and bred at Howard University, under Obama administrative celebrated scientists that were my mentor, I know the benefits of medical cannabis. No one can deny me that. The endocannabinoid system is a real system that has medical benefits. For those that don't understand what that means, your body produces cannabinoids. Literally, you're producing marijuana-like compounds in your body today. Through evolution, you have not been able to produce that to keep a balance in your system. And because that, what you'll see is the expression of cancer, multiple sclerosis, mental ailments, physical ailments that come up to the limelight. So when people use cannabis and get that balance back, what happens is that they feel better. They don't need traditional medicine in the same way, unless there's also exaggerated health issues for that. But knowing that people had a legitimate reason to look at cannabis as health care and then were incarcerated because they were a patient is kind of disgusting. Now, why would the United States ban the research of cannabis? Because they knew that it was a medicine that was accessible to us. And now, Black and whites use cannabis at the same rate, but 86% of all incarcerations regarding cannabis are for the Black male. Now, I think you're starting to understand where I'm going with this. Why did our system incarcerate the Black male? Does that look like an enslaved population that incrementally changed in name, but not in function? What did the Black man have to endure as now what I refer to as slavery 2.0? Not only that they were removed from their homes because of simple possession rights, some people distributed, and with that, you had a two-family household reduced to a one-family household. That nuclear family was destroyed. And not only was it destroyed, the children in the house had to endure that. The mother, the Black mother, had to take on the responsibility of a whole family, and in some instances, rely on the government to replace the Black man. They brought in Section 8 housing. They gave you SNAP benefits. So people ask me, why are the Black community so opposed to cannabis? Well, it's obvious. They took away our men. They took away our livelihood. And it's not fair to our children, who then systemically were subjugated to the same poverty levels because they, in turn, used cannabis as a health care benefit. They used it also in public subsidizing housing, and then we were removed from not only the house, but their families rejected. This line of policy is systemically, institutionally driven in the government today. And for us, we are internally damaged. And the Black women, including myself, prayed to get ourselves out of this situation. So damn if we want cannabis back, because we worked hard to get out. But you asked the question of this, what did the government have to gain? Well, the first time I spoke about this, they had to gain property taxes. Now, with the incarcerated male, $130,000 per year is the amount that it takes to keep someone incarcerated. Where are those funds coming from? Our prison system that the government backs. The prison system in the United States is over a $40 billion industry. It expands year over year. When I visit Alabama, they had just finished their $3 billion prison system. And I said, this can't be real. But who actually benefits from it? Well, how are the prisoners fed? Through contracts, government-issued contracts from some of the biggest food company and food services in the world. When you call, or they call out of the system, who's the communication contractor that is giving all these contracts to the private prison system? And in some instances, the public prison system. Then we're talking about health care. Who are taking care of the prisoners in there? What are the health care businesses that are benefiting from the Black man being in prison? So we look at this, and what I can say, just to give you a little bit of what it looks like today, is that we've been able to get out of it a little bit. But the businesses were losing. And big business in America never loses. So what happened? Well, when I went back to New Orleans about a month ago, I saw a big truck where they were just scraping in Hispanic people to now replace and join the Black people in what they're calling immigration reform. They're going to the same prisons that we have suffered from year over year. And they are generating over $30,000 per prisoner, yet again, and over a $40 billion industry. So I decided that knowing what this looks like, what was I going to do in the bigger picture of this? See, I can't convince everyone of my passion and my purpose or what my narrative is, but through personal leadership, I can decide what my next steps were. And to do that, I started to deconstruct the situation. Now, the first question I have to kind of ponder on with you, and I want you to be I'm gonna be very sensitive saying this, is that can the people in this room incite real change? And the answer is no. You don't have the power. Power meaning the money, the influence, and the knowledge on how to do it. But our white counterparts, if we educate them on all the things, They have the power. How did incremental change happen from an enslaved population to what we are today? It came from the white man. Now, I'm not saying we didn't advocate for it, but what I'm saying, the power lies where it lies. And I just want to bring that to the forefront here. So what did I do? Well, I got in a lot of trouble. I decided that in all the places that I were going to operate as a cannabis professional, I would decriminalize it. And in doing so, what I did is that I fought for patient rights. They have a right to use an alternate form of medication. But really what I was doing was making sure that future generations of Black men would never be incarcerated for cannabis. And I did it in several states. Now, I had to do added protections from different populations, like government workers. I had to say state workers, give them protections, parents, give them protections. I had to do that so our children wouldn't be impacted by these cannabis policies that would incarcerate us. And then in New Orleans, I hit the jackpot. I was granted the ability to give 10,000 people pardons of simple cannabis possessions. Congressman Troy Carter introduced on the national level the marijuana expungement bill. And meeting with the White House, I was able to educate on the need for mass pardons on the federal level. 6 months later, Joe Biden issued over 6,000 pardons to our community. So, what are the next steps for us? As I see the sign behind. The next steps is that it's time for us to educate those that can make a difference in our community. I've told you how to do it, but it has to be done on a mass level. I will love to say that one of our upcoming speakers, Audrey, we love you, for the state of Maryland, the Office of Social Equity, and also Governor Westmore has incorporated pardons for over 170,000 people. And at the Women Grow Leadership Summit, we honored him together. Thank you, Audrey. And what is important about this is that we need to do this on the national level because we need our men to stand up for themselves, for our families, and our communities. And if I had one thing to look forward in the future, to say what is the next step after we have decriminalization, we have mass pardoning, expungement of records, well, I will tell you, every state in the United States would turn blue if we instill voting rights for those that were incarcerated. And that is the key. So, as I conclude with this, I just want you to know that in doing so, I have taken steps that I'm not necessarily proud of. I've put my family in jeopardy. Husband, thank you for standing by me. I've had my life threatened on several occasions, which is a very scary thing. And I decided that in light of everything that's going on today, that I will continue on my work to just educate those that want to incite real change in policy to free our people, to free our community, and that we have an opportunity that God has given us the ability to change this world for our future generations. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your ability to understand my message. So there is an answer and question. Okay, yes, awesome. I'll start right here.
Thank you. That was some excellent information and historical information that people need to be aware of. But I wanted to say current, the last thing you said about the voting rights for the free incarcerated people. We have a felon in the White House. That's an argument. I mean, is he losing his voting rights? I mean, that's the argument. That's it. That's the key right there.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that.
On the sort of the flip side of that, I want to talk a little bit about that. By the way, thank you for your advocacy. I mean, you are truly a trailblazer. Admire you. Just think everything you do.
It's all God driven. Let's give God the glory. Give God the glory.
I wanted to talk from like more of an entrepreneurship and sort of flip on that. And I know you've been asked this a million times, but I'm going to ask this for the group. One of the things that I struggle with is at one point, my sister and I were going to start a cannabis-based business. And of course, she has a record in cannabis. And the challenges around moving into that space, particularly for a lot of African Americans, where there's still a lot of rules and stuff around. You have a record. Obviously there's other funding issues around credit and all that other stuff. And I just wanted to know from you in terms of what kind of advocacy are you seeing in that space to try to get more Black people into the cannabis space? Because it's still, it's the Wild West out there. It's exploding.
Yeah.
But it's still majority white people who are leading that.
I hate to say this again, but it's true. There is a majority predominantly white. It's because they're able to get the funding for it, and we can't. I mean, if you just think about a normal business, like how many of us get rejected before we get to the bank? Like it's just not, accessible to us. So then you put cannabis on top, it is non-existent. And it is a hard choice because of all the things that I said, but all the things that I haven't said. And when I say that, it is definitely laws that are put in place so that you won't survive. And a lot of people have invested their whole life savings for it, and it wasn't successful. And I will tell you, even for myself, I stopped paying my mortgage so I could pay for commercial space, but I have an MBA. Like, I was highly, highly educated by my Jewish professors at Rutgers University. And when I went into a calculated business decision, because I couldn't get funding, because banking or funds are not allowed from those institutions, I lost my house, but I won a cannabis empire. But that is a real gamble. It's hard to make those choices. And the real return on the investment happens at legalization. We have something called the 280E tax code that prevents you from being able to really make the money that you think people are making. Until that is gone, which legalization would allow, you will not make but a very slim margin, less than 10% on your business. And this is not what, some people want to hear, but you have to get yourself in position. And putting yourself in that position for legalization to happen is when generational wealth is established. So I'm not saying to be discouraged by it, but you can't start a business in cannabis when legalization happens because it's already too late. You have to learn the system, drive out what are my problems? How did I overcome not being able to advertise? You learn the path. And then when that happens, that's when everything changes. So I would say that get educated, definitely still consider it, and take steps forward, because it will be lucrative in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Macias. I'm kind of going to piggyback off of what you just said, and thank you for sharing the story. You kind of alluded into where legislation is now, and so for you being a doctor, you're holistic, and that's right. This question is how do you feel about a body that is done against holistic medicine from like your own competitors, who advocate Western medicine? What is your view or your perspective on how to approach that?
It's tricky. Again, let me just explain it for those that need to get more of a perspective. In the cannabis industry, we have two major competitors. We have Big Pharma, and we also have the alcohol industry. And those industry owns Congress. Until there is a way those industries can enter into cannabis in a revenue generating and self-interest to them, that's when cannabis will legalize. And we need to attach our coattails to them now so that when it happens, we're in position. But we don't have the power to change that now. And that's why I said we're in a holding pattern because of that. But it will happen. Pfizer in 2022 bought a company for $6.7 billion that focused on cannabis research. We know what's coming. They're just not ready. And from there, that's when you'll see all these cannabis companies start to sell to pharma or to compete in that space, which is still an area for competition because you always have your big cultivator and then you have your craft grower. A lot of people like locally sourced beers, et cetera, and it's a healthy business playing field at that point. But that's how they're doing it. As you can tell, Total Wine is now carrying hemp-derived cannabis drinks. And you'll start to see the actual pharmaceutical companies doing clinical trials. And those will be your external clues to know what is happening and when you need to get yourself definitely has to be in position by that time. But it's going to happen because they're losing too much money to the cannabis industry to not join the industry. Okay, any other questions?
Did the 2018 Farm Bill help at all in legalizing the hemp? And is it clear, because most people don't still have a clear understanding between the difference between hemp and cannabis, and that hemp has less than 3% THC and doesn't really get
So that is a very interesting question, and I'll tell you the truth. The Farm Bill was created because the pharmaceutical and the alcohol business weren't going to allow cannabis legalization to occur. But there were a powerful group of people that still could make money in hemp. And that's where the Farm Bill came from. Now, how did they make money in hemp? Well, they decided on a technicality that instead of selling THC, you could sell a hemp-derived product, which is also present in cannabis called Delta-8 or Delta-9, and low levels of THC, 0.3% and less. But to me, there's no difference than what's in cannabis. They just created this little caveat for people to be able to financially thrive using the word hemp. Have they thrived? They have. But for people like myself, I could have jumped on that bandwagon, but I'm a healthcare provider. And what I saw right after the Farm Bill was incorporated, where people could buy these products in gas stations, they could buy them in vape stores, and a lot of the times they said it was hemp, but it was really cannabis. So that is why a lot of states are fighting hemp products. because they're using the name hemp but just selling straight cannabis. Other questions? I don't know if y'all are ready for the truth. You look like, oh, wow.
What's on the rise in terms of like the eco waste that comes along with the rise in this industry? I think there's also opportunity for folks that aren't waiting for the legalization to still, participate in the economically successful in that side of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of positivity that can especially come from the cannabis plant, like hemp. What we know today is that you put a hemp plant down, it's gonna like take all the toxins out of the soil. That's the type of plant it is. So for crop rotation,
I'm referring to like your vials, your jars, your like.
oh,
Then it's gone, but like that has an impact on our ecosystem.
got it, that impact. There are some companies that really focus on recyclable, sustainable packaging, things of that nature. Is it a big impact? I can't say that it is for all companies. I know waste has been an issue throughout, and some states require it to be recyclable, biodegradable, even the plastics themselves. But is it mandated? Is it an economic driver? It's more determined by corporate social responsibility. So it's cannabis is so early in its stages, it's still not mature enough. But if you're a cannabis user, when you choose your product, you're looking for all those things, not that the industry is providing those things to you. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much for your time.